do with a perspective. And this is going to come up a couple more times before we're done here. Having a perspective, and we do this in church every week. I want to have a perspective of understanding toward people who are in different places than I am. Mm-hmm. People are in different places spiritually, they're in different places financially, we're in different places psychologically, physically, all those things. And so just as we want to be sensitive to the person that might have walked through the door today just visiting for the first time, we want to be sensitive to them. This has to go deeper. So I asked Mark a perspective question because it became clear to me in the last week or two that what I think I'm hearing when someone says Black Lives Matter, I'm not hearing the whole story. And I needed a new perspective, and I want Mark to talk to us about that because I think we need to hear this.
All right, sure, thank you. So when we think of the statements, let's just go 3 statements that we're hearing a lot of today. Marty mentioned one of them. I'll mention all 3. So we hear the statement, all lives matter. Standalone people, particularly those who know Christ, who are in God, they're going to agree with that, right? And then we'll hear the statement, blue lives matter, which is the statement that says police officers' lives matter. We would nod our head in assent, yes, they do. And then you follow that up with Black Lives Matter. And I see people here, and probably there are people online that I can't see, you're nodding your head, yes. So all 3 of those statements are true. And if you look at the Bible, there are multiple places where we're shown that. I'll just reference the one most of us knows, John 3:16. God so loved the world. He didn't say he loved white people in the world, black people in the world, and just brown people in the world. It just said God so loved the world. And so scripturally, we know all of those statements are true. And when we hear them stand alone, we would say absolutely yes to all 3 of those.
That's right.
So if we stop right there and we went on to the next question, Marty, we would feel good about ourselves that, wow, we got everybody on the same page, we're out of here, but the rest of you would be disappointed because I didn't really deal with the issue, the tension. There is tension around these statements, as true as they are. And the tension arises when all lives matter is said in response to Black Lives Matter. As true as the statements are, that's where the tension occurs. I want to share with you why the tension occurs. It's because what I mentioned to you last week, when you're in relationship with me, I bring with me my history. I bring with me who I am. I bring with me what I've been through. I bring with me what I'm currently going through. And you do the same. And so when I hear, as a response to Black Lives Matter, when I hear all lives matter, what it's saying to me, even though there are plenty of people who don't intend it, I think some people do it consciously. They want to get on your nerves. We'll pray for them. But for the vast majority of us, okay, who are doing it unconsciously, I'm just sharing with you what I hear. What I hear is that you know about my struggle and you're insensitive to it. Or even worse, you know about my struggle and you could care less. Now, you may not know anything about Black history. You might not. I mean, there are people who have grown up in this country absent of a Black history class and having relationships with people who are Black that they just don't know. There are things they don't know. But that's what would be heard. Okay? And so the question isn't so much whether or not all lives matter, Black lives matter, blue lives matter. The question is whether or not we are willing to pause long enough and love each other well enough to listen to one another. as opposed to just giving a quick rebuttal that makes us feel real good at the moment. For us to move forward together, it will take these crucial conversations. It'll take some time, it'll take some effort, but it sure is worth the journey.
It really is. You know, the thought came to me as we talked about this in the last two services. You know, when I grew up in a home where we had very powerful, eloquent, highly educated men and women who were black, speakers and writers, and my dad would have these people all the time speak at our church. They were his friends. And even Dr. Fowler on our board of elders, he and my dad were friends for, you know, well over 50, 60 years. So this is how I grew up. I grew up, I'm one of those that grew up not realizing there'd ever been a problem. My grandfather pastored two little churches at the same time in the cotton fields of South Carolina. And there were more black people than white in his church to start with. So I didn't know, it didn't dawn on me, I wasn't recording at a young age really when we'd go to South Carolina that there was anything different. I missed that. And so I'm sitting in college as a freshman in college when I get there, and next to me is a guy named Chuck. We're still friends, been friends ever since. Our parents were friends, his mother and my dad. But Chuck and I really had never sat and talked to each other. And I've maintained that friendship with Chuck, and we continue to be good friends. But one thing I think that's been important that I'm coming to know out of all that is a perspective then that helps me understand that just the issues of racism are really just below the surface still for many. That was a big eye-opener for me when I was willing to see that, and Chuck helped me do that. He helped me understand some things. You see, Chuck, he's my age, Chuck remembers having to go to the back of the bus when you got on it. Chuck remembers having to use different restrooms. Chuck remembers having to do a different water fountain. Chuck remembers the insults, the things that were said, and they had to go home and just keep it quiet, kind of like what you said more about your upbringing as well. You really, I think you'll say that. You learn that certainly as Christians, we just don't respond. Now my friend Chuck grew up with that. He still remembers that. Mm-hmm. Now imagine his mother, Cleo, who just died. She's 93 years old. Cleo remembers the 20s, the 30s. See, those are part of the fabric of her memories. I don't have any memories like that. Oh, when I was a kid in junior high school, I was chubby as all get out, and I hated PE because I couldn't do anything. And so I got that, you know, but I don't have any memories. I don't ever recall being looked at odd when we walked into a restaurant or having a certain place we were supposed to sit or couldn't use that bathroom or couldn't go to that water fountain or couldn't ride that bus, at least in the closest seat to the front. So in other words, I have nothing like that. I have no experience like that. But what it has done then is help me understand a lot of my black brothers and sisters do. And it's still very close to that. It's still very much there. Like you were explaining with Black Lives Matter. How you hear that, what you hear when that phrase is mentioned, versus our need to immediately go, well, all lives matter.
Yes, and I'd like to just share with you, I'd like to give you an opportunity to appreciate why a black person would come into relationship with you with that perspective.
Yeah.
It is because black people in America have been treated in such a way that our lives did not matter,
Don't matter.
that our lives were not as valuable or valued as the other lives here in America. Whether you want to look at it, slavery, what it said to us, or what discrimination said to us, and what prejudice has said to us and is saying to us, what it's saying to us is, your life is not valued as equally as other lives. So I just want you to understand that when we come into it with that perspective, that's why, and understand this, Black people have been pleading to have our lives valued equally long before the Black Lives Matter organization was ever created.
Yeah.
I'm about to get emotional here. That's been I'm sorry. It's been a long call. And so when you interact with us, understand, this didn't just start today.
Yeah, that's right.
But here's what's so encouraging. Here's what's so encouraging. I've listened to you well enough to know that you realize you're not to blame. You said, why am I to blame for slavery? I'm not. I wasn't a slave owner. Why am I to blame for discrimination? I don't discriminate against other people. Why am I to blame for prejudice? Because I'm not prejudiced toward others. And I'll just quickly let you know, it's not about blaming you. We're not blaming you. And others would say, it's not my fault. I wasn't there. I didn't do it. I'm not doing it. It's not my fault. And we would say, yeah, you're right. It's not your fault. I can agree with you in that. I can agree with you that you and I did not create this mess of racial injustice. But I can also agree with you that God has given us the authority and power through reconciliation to clean this mess up.
That's right.
And I'm calling you to come along with me and let's get it done.
Yeah, let's do it.